This is the 6th video in a series about installing the Early Warning Intervention and Monitoring System process known as EWIMS. The video series was created collaboratively by the Great Lakes Comprehensive Center and the Michigan Department of Education. These videos are based on the work of the National High School Center and were designed as a companion to the EWIMS Implementation Guide. The main objective of this video is to deepen understanding of Step 5 of the 7-step EWIMS process, assigning and providing interventions. After identifying students who are off track in Step 3 and digging deeper to understand the underlying causes of risk in Step 4, in Step 5, the EWIMS team selects and assigns students to appropriate interventions to help them get back on track in the areas of attendance, behavior, and course performance. In simple terms, in Step 3 we identify who is flagged, in Step 4 we ask why they are flagged, and in Step 5 we discuss how to intervene. This graphic should look familiar from Step 4, except that now it includes a watering can. The watering can represents the interventions and supports the school provides to students in Step 5 to address the root causes that were identified in Step 4. What will you need for Step 5? During Step 5, the EWIMS team matches individual students to specific interventions after having gathered information about potential root causes for students who have been flagged and the academic and behavioral support and intervention programs available in the school, district, and community. The first time you go through Step 5, the team will compile an inventory of supports and interventions available to students. Creating the inventory informs EWIMS teams about the supports and interventions that are available and where there are gaps. For a tool to guide the creation of an inventory of interventions, please see Appendix B in the EWIMS Implementation Guide. In Step 5, the EWIMS team starts by using the information about student needs from the previous steps in the process. The team considers potential supports and interventions that align with student needs. After initially matching students to specific supports or interventions, the team agrees on a plan and next steps for implementing the intervention. Step 5 also includes communicating the intervention plan to key stakeholders in order to put it into action. In the following slides, we describe each of these actions. At the end of Step 5, you will have assigned flagged students to supports and interventions based on the students' needs identified in Steps 3 and 4. To introduce a more systematic approach to student support interventions, schools and districts are increasingly organizing interventions into 3 tiers. The tiers are layered and designed to correlate with student needs, with more intensive supports at the higher tiers. Delivering interventions through a tiered framework is a responsive system for providing instruction, interventions, and supports to meet the needs and assets of the whole child. Tier 1 interventions, which are research-based instructional and classroom interventions made available to all learners, effectively meet the needs of most students. Tier 2 interventions are supplemental, targeted interventions intended for some learners who require support beyond Tier 1. Tier 3 interventions and supports provide intensive individual interventions for those few learners with severe academic or non-academic needs. In preparation for organizing supports and interventions by tier, it is helpful to consider existing supports, interventions, and other resources. The intervention inventory is not an exhaustive list of possibilities, but merely a starting point. As the EWIMS team reviews existing interventions, they take note of overlaps to reduce the duplication of effort. In taking stock of existing interventions, include the number of students who can realistically be served by each intervention, that is, availability, and the process by which students access the support. With this information, the team can then identify gaps and consider whether additional interventions may be needed. Remember that sometimes resources and supports are available, but their existence is not communicated to stakeholders. It's a good idea to also inventory supports that are available in the surrounding community. The Student Support and Intervention Mapping tool, seen here, is included as Appendix B in the 2017 Michigan EWIMS Implementation Guide. In the tool, EWIMS teams record the name of each intervention or support, the availability, that is, the capacity or number of slots or seats the intervention has, and other details, such as when and where it meets, who runs it, and any entrance or exit criteria or procedures. Maintaining this type of updated record of supports and interventions enables the EWIMS team to match students with the intervention that best fits their needs. As the array of interventions grows and changes, the team revises the inventory. As EWIMS teams match students to supports and interventions, they should consider the following issues. Actual student need. What was determined in Step 4 as the root cause or student need? Outcomes. Is it likely that an available intervention will address the barriers the student is facing? Grade or age group. Is the intervention appropriate for the grade level, age, and stage of the student? Characteristics and conditions. How do the characteristics of flagged students inform intervention decisions? How do the conditions the student is experiencing in and out of school impact intervention selection? For example, let's say that an EWIMS team reviewing its data in Step 3 learns that there's an issue with a group of high school students who are regularly tardy. When they dig deeper into the data in Step 4, they discover that 17 of the 20 students who are regularly tardy are late because they have to drop off younger siblings at the nearby elementary school. In Step 5, the EWIMS team could decide to initiate a school bus run from the elementary to the high school each morning, to allow the high school students to drop off their siblings without being late themselves. This support would address the specific need, provide a Tier 2 support to a group of students who have something in common, and be likely to result in the desired outcome, fewer tardies and reduced lost instructional time. When the EWIMS team discusses assigning students to interventions, the following guiding questions can help the team arrive at the best possible fit between students and interventions. Although the matching process relies heavily on data collected during Step 3 and the potential root causes identified in Step 4, in Step 5, team members are also encouraged to apply their judgment as education professionals to recommend supports and interventions. After the EWIMS team decides on an approach, which intervention or support to assign, it is time to create a plan and break it into manageable steps by recording how the team will support the student or group of students. Keeping a written record assists with continuity and follow-through. As you create a plan for each student, consider who will record which students are assigned to each intervention, who will be responsible for implementing each intervention. EWIMS team members are sometimes responsible for directly providing interventions, but not always. When they are not, it is important to decide who will contact the person responsible for implementing the intervention, who will collect information on whether the intervention is implemented with fidelity. For example, did the adults do what they said they would do to support the student? The bumper sticker version of Step 5 is, who will do what, by when? After the plan has been developed and recorded, the EWIMS team considers how to effectively inform key stakeholders such as teachers, parents, coaches, and of course, the student about the plan. To do so, consider the following. To what degree will the student and family be involved in selecting the intervention that is the best fit? Who has a strong relationship with the student and will communicate next steps to him or her? How will next steps be thoughtfully communicated to the family? The Michigan Data Hub Early Warning Data Tool is not only used to extract information, it's also used for inputting and storing information. If your district uses the Early Warning Data Tool, the EWIMS team can employ the tool to assign students to interventions. After this is done, as seen here, the student's page will show the intervention start date, expected completion date, tier or level, and the person who assigned the intervention. The data tool also allows users to see a list of students assigned to a particular intervention. Yes, evidence is important. EWIMS teams want to do what works and comply with the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. However, Some of the ways that the team intervenes are likely to be common best practice. For example, calling a student's home, and may not necessarily meet the requirements for strong evidence under ESSA. The EWIMS process itself is an evidence-based practice. And remember, your job is to support students, which will be measured by a decrease in flags and a decrease in students being reflagged. When selecting an intervention, it is important to be realistic about what can be accomplished. To ensure compatibility with your school's existing interventions and appropriate allocation of resources, be sure to use your district's defined process for selecting interventions. Here are some questions for the team to consider. Is the intervention being considered one that can be implemented with fidelity in your school? Can be implemented for a reasonable cost? Can be implemented within a reasonable time frame? Requires specialized expertise or lengthy training to implement? Provides ready access to training and technical support for staff? Has demonstrated effectiveness in your district or state? Will address the actual need? And one more criterion that is important to consider. Does the intervention align with school and community values and organizational structure? Although EWIMS does not endorse specific programs, here are a few common interventions that are supported by anecdotal evidence. To mention just a few on this list: wake-up calls, calling students who are habitually late to school early enough so that they're able to get to school on time can serve as a preventative measure. Peer tutoring for content, scheduling time for students to tutor one another in specific subjects can improve academic as well as social outcomes for students who are struggling with understanding content as well as engagement. Advisories. Advisory is a school-wide approach to building a communal sense of belonging, developing strong relationships between peers and adults, and fostering social and emotional competencies. An advisor, like a coach, supports the group and looks out for the well-being of each student. Intervention inventories are always a work in progress. When your EWIMS team finds a gap in your inventory or comes across a student with a need that is not met by existing approaches, there are many resources for identifying additional evidence-based programs, practices, and interventions. The Michigan Department of Education and the Great Lakes Comprehensive Center have created a one-page information sheet listing registries and databases of evidence-based resources. To access the information sheet, visit the Michigan Early Warning Intervention and Monitoring System page on the Michigan Department of Education website. The Michigan Data Hub Early Warning Data Tool facilitates storing intervention inventories through its intervention catalog. EWIMS teams can use the tool to search for interventions using defined criteria and can record in the tool which interventions are assigned to which students. In the future, the intervention catalog will be searchable, and the Michigan Department of Education and schools throughout the state will be able to add practices, programs, and interventions to the catalog. The catalog will categorize interventions by improvement areas, availability, location, target populations, grade levels, intervention tier, and target gender. Schools and districts that have signed up for access to the Data Hub will be able to search the catalog, add to it, and rate the effectiveness of interventions in it. Now that you are aware of some relevant tools, let's consider tips for successfully implementing Step 5. When many students are flagged in Step 3, given limited EWIMS meeting time, it can be difficult to know which students to start discussing in Step 4 and how to approach assigning interventions in Step 5. Here are a few strategies for prioritizing when there are more students to discuss than time allows. Ask, what do the data suggest are the most immediate needs? Target your efforts by focusing on groups of students with similar flags. Triage by looking for urgent student needs that several students have in common. If the underlying root causes also match, you may want to assign these students to the same intervention or a group intervention. Divide and conquer by distributing shorter lists of students to a few EWIMS team members for data review, interpretation, and assignment to interventions. To create these shorter lists, consider grouping students by strengths, indicators, characteristics, conditions, or the specialties of EWIMS team members. In Step 5, there are 3 common implementation challenges you may encounter: underestimating the utility of Tier 1 interventions, supply and demand mismatches, and irrelevant distractions. The first common challenge that occurs in Step 5 is underestimating the utility or importance of Tier 1 interventions. It is appropriate to respond with urgency to students who have intensive needs. However, the greater the need, the more resources that will need to be devoted. In a multi-tiered system, all students should have access to Tier 1 universal interventions, regardless of whether they have a demonstrated need. Too often, we dismiss or underestimate the utility of universal interventions that are available to all students. When Tier 1 supports are overlooked or eliminated, more students will need Tier 2 and 3 interventions, which often overwhelms school capacity. Prevention and early intervention narrow the stream of students requiring intervention or specialized supports. If you find a growing need for Tier 2 and 3 interventions in your school, it is a signal to revisit and strengthen Tier 1 interventions. To address this challenge, advocate for your school and district to devote sufficient resources to Tier 1 supports universally provided to all students. Investing in Tier 1 interventions, for example, before and after school programs and movement breaks during the school day, can prevent students from needing more intensive interventions later on. The second implementation challenge is a mismatch between students' needs and the interventions that are available. Mismatches are most likely to occur when existing interventions can't serve enough students who need support. There are inadequate interventions to meet the range of student needs. To address this challenge, be sure to share with leaders in your school, district, and community the intervention gaps that were identified when you created the inventory of interventions. Explain to school district leaders, families, and representatives of community agencies what the gaps are and why they're a problem, and then ask for their support to address the gaps. The final common challenge associated with Step 5 is succumbing to irrelevant distractions when selecting and implementing interventions. This generally occurs when schools and districts do any of the following: implement an intervention because it is free. Implement an intervention solely because it is favored by someone in the district or someone with influence in the community. Implement an overabundance of interventions as a result of having limited or no criteria for selecting interventions. It is critical to choose interventions that are closely aligned with student needs and most likely to result in the desired outcomes. A good strategy for protecting against the challenge of irrelevant distractions is to stay firmly focused on student needs. Remember that it is the roots of the plant that need water and nutrients, not the leaves. Make sure your school or district has well-defined criteria for selecting interventions. It's perfectly acceptable to say no to an intervention that does not clearly address student needs. The challenge is having the discipline to stick to the criteria when choosing interventions to implement, along with implementing interventions with fidelity, which will be discussed in Step 6. Thank you for joining us for the Step 5 EWIMS video. In the next video, which focuses on Step 6, we explore the process of monitoring student progress and interventions to see what's working. Thank you for all you do on behalf of Michigan's students and families every day.